Have you ever heard of a group of warriors, landowners, strategists who, well, despite their name implying a specific number, were actually far more numerous and managed to hold off one of the most powerful empires in history for decades? That's the extraordinary story we're diving into today. The Baro Bhuiyan.
They really were fascinating. These confederacies of soldier landowners, they became really prominent forces in late medieval and early modern Assam and Bengal. What sets them apart, I think, is their structure, decentralized, yes, but highly effective, and the sheer influence they had in, shaping the destiny of those regions.
That's a key point, isn't it? Confederacy, not a kingdom. So get ready, because we're going to unpack who these Baro Bhuiyan really were. We'll look at their unique and, frankly, incredibly ingenious methods of resistance and how they ultimately played this pivotal role in shaping the history of a vibrant, strategically vital part of South Asia. This deep dive, I think, promises some genuinely surprising facts and insights. It's a story of resilience against, well, overwhelming odds. All right, let's unpack the name itself first. Baro Bhuiyan. Now, it literally translates to 12 landlords, but here's where it gets really interesting. The term Baro apparently meant many, not specifically 12, so it wasn't about a fixed number at all, but more like a collective, a powerful force, much bigger than just a dozen chiefs.
That's absolutely vital to understand. The Baro Bhuiyans were essentially confederacies. Think of them as collections of loosely independent entities, each led by its own warrior chief or a powerful landlord. And this specific tradition, it's quite unique to Assam and Bengal. It really sets them apart from, say, the Bihar tradition you might find in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. While Bihars often represented individual, hereditary landholders, the Baro Bhuiyans were defined by their ability to act together, cooperatively. It highlights this distinct regional form of decentralized power.
And their dynamic sounds incredibly smart, very adaptive. So in times of external aggression, like when a big invading force showed up, they generally cooperate, forming these temporary, but apparently pretty formidable confederacies to defend their lands and kick out invaders.
Exactly. But crucially, during peacetime, they maintained their individual sovereignty pretty fiercely. Each controlled their own cluster of villages. They might offer allegiance to a strong king if one emerged, sure, but they generally ran their own show. And some of the more powerful ones, they even called themselves Raja, or king.
And what's truly fascinating, you mentioned the diversity. Their rulers came from all sorts of ethnic, religious, social backgrounds. That wasn't a weakness, was it? It seems like it was a strength. Allowed them to draw on different talents, maybe build broader alliances.
Precisely. It fostered adaptability. Now, if we look at the bigger picture, we really see two distinct narratives, or perhaps phases, for the Baro Bhuiyans. One unfolds in Assam, and then another, slightly later, rises to prominence in Bengal. Starting with Assam, back in the 13th century Brahmaputra Valley, the Baro Bhuiyan Raj system emerged from various petty chieftains. These were essentially fragments left over from the old Kamarupa kingdom. They showed remarkable bravery resisting foreign invasions, notably making a stand against Ghiyasuddin Shah. He was a powerful sultan trying to push eastwards. Sometimes they even managed to grab state power themselves, temporarily.
Right. And their territory in Assam, it was quite significant. You mentioned west of the Kachari Kingdom on the south bank, west of the Chutia Kingdom on the north bank, covering areas like Nagaon, Doran, Sonatpur today.
That's correct, a substantial area. But their rule in Assam eventually faded in the 16th century. They got squeezed, basically, caught between the expanding Kachari and Kamata kingdoms to their west, and ultimately they were overpowered by the steadily growing Ahom kingdom coming from the east. The Ahoms were consolidating their own power base.
Okay, so that's Assam. Now, shifting focus to Bengal.
Yeah.
This is where they really clashed with the Mughals, right?
Yeah.
16th century.
Exactly. In 16th century Bengal, the Baro Bhuiyans rise to real prominence, primarily defined by their fierce resistance to the expanding Mughal Empire. The most famous confederacy in Bengal was led by the legendary Isa Khan of Sonargaon. They emerged during a period when the Bengal Sultanate was disintegrating. They became so powerful, in fact, that they effectively carved up the land of Bhati and other parts of Bengal into 12 administrative units. They called it Dwadas Bangla, literally 12 Bengals.
Okay, let's get a little background here. Before the Mughals fully arrived, there was the Karani dynasty. Founded by Taj Khan Karani, they were the last independent rulers of the Bengal Sultanate. His successor, Suleiman Khan Karani, he was quite a figure, wasn't he? Annexed Orissa, nominally accepted Mughal authority under Akbar for a time, controlled a huge territory from Kokbihar down to Puri.
He did. He was a shrewd ruler. But as Karani power eventually weakened, that vacuum allowed figures like Isa Khan and the other Bhuiyans to really assert their independence. However, despite their initial strength and resistance, the Baro Bhuiyan in Bengal gradually, systematically succumbed to Mughal dominance. This happened mainly during the reign of Emperor Jahangir, particularly under the very capable governor Isa Khan I.
You mentioned the Bhati region. That seems crucial. What exactly was it?
Right, the Bhati region. Mughal histories, like the Akbarnama, they describe it as the low-lying riverine parts of Bengal. Broadly speaking, it's the area between the Bhagirathi River in the west and the Meghna River in the east. Some definitions also pull in areas like Hijli, Jessore, Chandradwip, Baradas. The actual theater of war, according to contemporary accounts, stretched from the Ichmati River westwards all the way to Tripura in the east and included northern areas like Alapsing Pargana and Baniacheng. It paints a picture of this vast, watery, complex battleground.
Okay, so here's where it gets really compelling. Emperor Akbar, one of history's great empire builders, sends these huge armies to conquer Bengal. The Mughals, with their massive armies, war elephants, cavalry, they were masters of the plains of North India. Their tactics worked there. But Bengal was something else entirely.
It truly was. And what's fascinating is how the land itself became maybe the Mughals' toughest opponent. They faced this incredibly intricate network of rivers, streams, swamps. It made their traditional cavalry charges almost impossible. And moving supplies was a constant nightmare. And on top of that, you have the monsoon rains. Brutal, lasting for months, turning everything into mud, disrupting campaigns, washing away roads and supply lines.
So even with all their might, they struggled.
They struggled immensely. They faced incredibly fierce, tenacious local resistance. The BaroBhuyians didn't just roll over. They successfully repelled multiple Mughal invasions. They even won significant victories against top Mughal generals, people like Shahbaz Khan, who was Akbar's foster brother, and even Raja Mansingh, the celebrated commander from Jaipur. This resistance effectively delayed full Mughal control over Bengal for decades. It's quite a remarkable feat when you think about the scale of the Mughal Empire.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the leaders behind this. Isa Khan, you mentioned him. He seems like a central figure. What was his story?
Isa Khan is fascinating. His background is quite layered. His grandfather, Bhagirath, was apparently a Rajput from Ayodhya who came to Bengal and became a Diwan, a high financial officer, under the Sultan. Isa Khan's father then converted to Islam, married the Sultan's daughter, and received the zamindari, the landholding of Serail. That's where Isa Khan was born. His legacy is strong. The Bangladesh Navy named its first major base BNS Isa Khan in his honor back in the 70s. That tells you something about his enduring image.
Wow. And then there is Pratapaditya of Jessore. He sounds formidable, too.
Oh, absolutely. Pratapaditya was a very powerful and ambitious leader based in Jessore. He commanded a large army and, maybe more importantly, this massive fleet, something like 700 warboats, which is just incredible. He initially submitted to the Mughals, but his ambition got the better of him, and he eventually defied Emperor Jahangir. But here's a crucial point, and maybe a tragic element to the whole Baro Bhuiyan story. Pratapaditya's downfall was partly due to his own strategic errors, but also a reluctance, it seems, to fully commit his forces to help the broader confederacy when others were under attack. It kind of highlights the sometimes fractured nature of their unity. Even when facing a common enemy, individual ambitions or perhaps mistrust could weaken their overall front.
Right. So, okay, diverse leaders, deep knowledge of the terrain, incredible resilience. But what was their main tactical advantage? What made them so effective, especially against Mughal might?
I think it comes down to incredible ingenuity, particularly in warfare. The Baro Bhuiyans, especially leaders like Isa Khan, were absolute masters of naval warfare. Their fleets consisted of these agile, shallow draft warboats, the Nau. These boats totally dominated the waterways.
So how did that work in practice?
Well, imagine a Mughal supply convoy, probably slow and heavy, moving down a wide river. Suddenly, dozens of these fast Nau boats appear seemingly out of nowhere from hidden creeks, from dense mangrove forests. They could ambush Mughal land forces from the rivers, cutting off vital supply lines. They could disable the larger, clumsier Mughal vessels and then just melt away back into the river network before the Mughals could effectively respond.
Guerrilla warfare on water, essentially.
Exactly. That raises the key question. How did they consistently challenge such a powerful land-focused empire given the Mughals' resources? It wasn't just the boats, though they were crucial. It was their intimate, deeply ingrained knowledge of the local geography. They used effective guerrilla tactics. Strike fast, hit hard, and then disappear into the delta's maze of waterways and thick forests. It made it almost impossible for the Mughals to pin them down for a decisive battle on Mughal terms. And you also have to remember the local population. They fought with incredible determination. This was their homeland they were defending.
And after Isa Khan passed away? His son took over, Musa Khan.
Yes, his eldest son, Isa Khan. He inherited the leadership position in Sonargaon and became the chief of the Baro Bhuiyan landlords. He picked up the mantle and bravely continued the resistance against the Mughals for, well, over another decade.
But even that fierce resistance eventually met its match.
It did. Even the most determined local resistance faces immense challenges against a centralized empire focused on conquest. Emperor Jahangir was absolutely set on bringing Bengal fully under Mughal control. He realized the previous strategies hadn't worked consistently, so in 1608 he made a key appointment. Islam Khan Chishti became the new Mughal Subadar, the provincial governor. And Islam Khan wasn't just a soldier, he's a brilliant, patient, and extremely methodical strategist.
And his first big move was pretty significant, wasn't it? Moving the capital.
A masterstroke, really. He immediately shifted the Mughal provincial capital to Dhaka.
Right into their heartland.
Exactly. It wasn't just symbolic, it placed the Mughal military and administrative base deep within the riverine territory of the Baro Bhuiyan. It forced the conflict onto their home ground, yes, but it also allowed the Mughals to sustain pressure in a way they couldn't easily from afar. It showed Islam Khan understood both logistics and, perhaps, the psychological impact.
And he didn't just move the capital, did he? He had a whole strategy.
Oh, a very systematic one. He started building forts, establishing numerous fortified outposts across the region to control territory and, crucially, secure his supply lines. And significantly, he focused on building a formidable Mughal fleet, boats specifically designed to counter the Bhuians' naval advantage on their own watery turf. He was also politically cunning. He used diplomacy, bribes, threats, whatever worked to break up the Bhuian alliances, deliberately isolating key figures like Pratapaditya and Musa Khan from potential allies.
So divide and conquer, essentially.
A classic, and in this case, highly effective application of it. His method involved launching these sustained, relentless, methodical campaigns. He didn't try to do everything at once. He focused on defeating one Bhuian chief after another, preventing them from uniting effectively.
And this strategy worked.
Yeah.
Pratapaditya's kingdom, Jessore, was a major target.
It was a primary target. Despite Pratapaditya's large army and his famous fleet, he found himself facing overwhelming, well-organized, and persistently applied Mughal force. After fierce fighting, and crucially, without receiving timely or sufficient help from other Baro Bhuiyan chiefs who were perhaps already under pressure or wary, Jessore was eventually overrun. Pratapaditya was captured. His defeat was a massive blow, psychologically and militarily, to the overall resistance. It felt irreversible.
And Musa Khan, he kept fighting after his father.
He did. Musa Khan continued the struggle valiantly in the Bhati region. He proved himself a capable leader in riverine warfare, too. But Islam Khan's relentless pressure, combined with the Mughals' superior resources and his systematic approach of picking off opponents one by one, eventually just wore down the resistance. By about 1612 CE, maybe a little later in some pockets, the independent power of the Baro Bhuians was largely extinguished. Islam Khan's strategy had succeeded. Bengal was firmly integrated into the vast Mughal Empire, bringing an end to decades of this really fierce local resistance.
It's quite a story. These Baro Bhuians, they weren't born into grand royal families, were they? They were zamindars, basically landholders who rose to the challenge. But you could certainly call them patriots. They resisted the might of the Mughal Empire for something like 3 decades, showing incredible resilience, strategic thinking, and just sheer determination against unbelievable odds.
Absolutely. And after 1612, once Islam Khan had consolidated Mughal control, the term Baro Bhuians largely faded from official accounts, but survived strongly in popular culture in tales, ballads, local legends. That survival itself is powerful, isn't it? It's a testament to their enduring legacy in the collective memory of the region. They became the symbol of localized power, a fierce defiance against an overwhelming imperial force.
So, reflecting on all this, what really stands out to you about this incredible story, this tale of localized power, strategic genius in difficult terrain, and just fierce determination against a massive empire? How might understanding these kinds of regional power dynamics and the unique challenges of warfare in a place like the Bengal Delta, how might that reshape the way we usually think about history? Especially those grand narratives of conquest and resistance. It certainly gives us, and you listening, a lot to think about, doesn't it?